The Orlando Magic have come such a long way this season, and a blowout win over the Brooklyn Nets proves it. We'll get to what they've done and why it matters against this opponent on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 28th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, how far the Magic have come. We'll talk about why this game against the Brooklyn Nets signified or symbolized the progress this team has made. Plus, we'll talk about how the Magic filled in for Paolo Banchero coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. The NBA schedule is always filled with little quirks. It's always filled with things. And look, everyone goes through the schedule. They have their own journey through it. That I couldn't help myself and think about what Tuesday's game against the Brooklyn Nets symbolized. Look, the Magic and the Nets are very different places than the last time they faced. But there's no doubt that the two games that the Magic played against the Nets in Brooklyn earlier this season were really important games. The Magic lost by 20 in the in-season tournament, and their in-season tournament opener to the Nets probably cost them advancing in the tournament. Everyone on the team says we look back at that game as a learning lesson, as having to understand every game is important and to treat every game with a certain level of intensity. Then there was the December 2nd game that ended the Magic's 9-game win streak, when the Magic got run out of Barclays Center. They gave up 26 points to Mikal Bridges in the first quarter. He scored 42 for the game. The Magic were never in that game. Two of probably the worst losses of the season for Orlando. And so, yes, it's a small thing, but Brooklyn is something of a measuring stick. It's a team that was in a spot the Magic wanted to be in last year, obviously. The Magic are trying to take Brooklyn's spot from the playoffs. It's a team that had Orlando's number. And a team that Orlando even admittedly said, we owe them something. We owe them a little bit to just get them back for these wins. And look, the Magic and Nets are in very different places now. They're very different teams than what they were in December. The Nets made some major moves at the trade deadline. They fired their coach. They're in the play-in chase, but the back end of it, the Magic are fighting in a very tight Eastern Conference that probably deserves some discussion tomorrow. This is not the same measuring stick game that it was. Yet, knowing what Brooklyn has done to Orlando this year, for Orlando to come out and thoroughly dismantle the Brooklyn Nets piece by piece, bit by bit, to dominate a game against, frankly, an inferior opponent I can't help but sit back and think, how far has this team gone? How much has this team evolved? How much has this team grown to be able to do what the Magic did to the Nets on Tuesday night? A 108-81 game. You could see the result. You can see the score on the rundown there if you're watching on YouTube. A 108-81 victory. That was just thoroughly dominant. And yeah, Orlando didn't really put the foot down until the third quarter. They won the third quarter 30-15. That was when they really dominated. But guess what? That's what good teams do against inferior opponents. They come out of the locker room and they dominate. They come out of the locker room and end any thought of victory. As I always say, when a team loses by 30, and we've unfortunately had to talk a lot about this on the wrong end, the team that loses a 30-point result, and the Magic won by 27, but they led by as much as 33. A result like this says more about the losing team than it does the winning team. The Nets got issues. Listen to our friends at Locked On Nets to hear them complain. But the Magic are a young team that's learning poise, learning maturity, learning how to put these kinds of games away. Something they struggled with against the Pistons on Saturday and struggled with against the Hawks on Sunday. And the Magic don't win a lot of games like this, even for as good as they are. But this is part of that growing process. This is part of what it takes to be a really good team. To learn how to do this. How to be about your principles in such a fundamental way that, frankly, you're not doing anything that special to break a team's will. And look, again, listen to our friends at Locked On Nets to get their perspective on things. I am sure they are going through it right now because that was rough. Like, there isn't a lot to say about this game. This game, as much as I want to make it about the Magic, as much as I want to make it about, this Magic team did so many good things. We're going to talk about some of the bigger story, some of the more minute storylines here in a minute, but this game was about the Nets being really bad. Like, the Nets were really bad. They were really bad. Like, that was rough. That is a team that doesn't have much direction and, frankly, got broken. The Magic broke them. And we've been through enough in the last decade to know what that looks like and what that feels like when a team just completely breaks your spirit. The Magic are finally on the other end of those, where they see a team that's reeling like Brooklyn, and like I said, Saturday, goes for the kill. Just absolutely decimates them. The Magic haven't done that in a while. They took care of their business. They took care of their work. And they've come a long way in the process. This game was significant because of what Brooklyn did to them earlier. It's significant because Orlando probably does not have a game like this against an opponent as talented as Brooklyn earlier in the season. The Magic just dominated so thoroughly. We have no choice but to recognize and understand how much better this team is since December. The Orlando Magic, though, had their own hill to climb. How the Magic filled in for Paolo Banchero. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at BetterHelp. Look, things can be tough for anybody. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, whether it's big or small. Certain things can start to get to you. It's important to let it out, especially as someone who's unbiased in your life but is ultimately in your corner. So today, I want to encourage you to get that thing off your chest, to just let it go, to verbalize it, to put it out in the universe. It can be extremely cathartic. It can be good for you. And so if you've got something to say, don't be afraid to say it. And if you need help getting it out, definitely find a friendly ear to listen. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, although our favorite sports teams do aggravate us a lot usually. And it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by friends at Stitch Fix. You know, the instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good, that's what you can get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist who helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. Just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You order boxes when you want and how you want, no subscription required. And they send 5 just for you pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works and send back the rest. Your stylist sends just right pieces and the fit is always on point. It's like they have style ESP. You just don't know how they do it, but they get you. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. I don't like to shop, and they save you time and effort by doing the shopping for you. Plus, you get outfits that make you look and feel really good. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day. Every day, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts like me of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Okay, this game, like I said, this game was more about the Nets being really bad. And, again, the Magic clearly have made some major steps forward. And one area that we talked about this week, that they really took a step forward in this game was their approach without Paolo Banchero. This team's used to be playing hurt and used to playing with injuries and having to fill in, but Paolo Banchero, like any team, is such a central, he has so much gravity with this roster and with this team. They're not quite built around him yet. They're getting there. But so much of what they do is built on him. And the attention he receives and his ability to score and again, just draw defenses to him. And so we saw this Sunday, Orlando really struggled to kind of fill in for him. Again, it wasn't that Franz Wagner had a necessarily poor game, but he wasn't the star player that the Magic needed him to be. He wasn't the driving force, and the Magic looked sluggish. They were stagnant offensively. Like, things were not moving. It was like they were waiting for a Paolo Banchero to save them. Now, Orlando doesn't have to play that differently just because Paolo Banchero's out of the game. Like, they could still run a lot of the same things, but they do need to play with a different kind of energy. And that was one of the big differences on Tuesday against the Nets. It started with their best player. Like, honestly, I mentioned this yesterday, areas that Franz Wagner still has to grow. And, I get it. Sometimes it sounds critical, but it's also necessary. When you're down your star player, your kind of driving force and the guy who feeds a lot of your team's energy, you suddenly see everyone else has to step up a little bit. And the reason why you put a lot of focus on Franz Wagner is you believe he can do it. You believe that he can step up his level of play, that he can be more than what he was and more than what he's been giving the team. That is at the core what's important for the Magic. And so, look, everything on Tuesday night started with Franz Wagner. His ability to get downhill, his ability to get to the basket, his ability to just attract attention, to break through double teams, as poor as Brooklyn's defensive scheme was. He had a different mindset in this game than he did Sunday in Atlanta. He played the whole game like he played the first quarter of that game. Just getting downhill, squeezing his way to the basket, just all the things that he has to do that to just fill in a little bit for Paolo Banchero. You know, it wasn't just him. I don't want to make it sound like it was just him, but Franz at 21 points, 8 for 11 shooting, 5 for 5 from the foul line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. It was just balance. It's honestly less about the scoring because Franz would have scored 30 if he played in the fourth quarter in this game. Brooklyn was not stopping him. It was more about the energy and the aggression. Because Franz wasn't settling for jumpers, because Franz was getting downhill. Everything else had flow. The ball was moving. The defense was on point. Just like everything else like fit into place. And look, Atlanta right now is a better team than Brooklyn. Again, listen to our friends at Locked On Nets. This game is very much about how far Brooklyn has fallen. I honestly don't have a lot to say or a lot of takeaways from this game because the Magic just frankly just beat up on honestly, Brooklyn felt like a tanking team, and not a tanking team like Detroit, who's still trying and still fighting and grinding. Brooklyn looked like it. They were still on break. And I hate to put that on anyone, and I hate to say that, but the Magic just shut them down. The Magic just brought a lot of energy and fire to this game, and that when you're down players, that's half the battle. Just winning the energy battle. You expect some execution. You expect some players to do well. And Franz did his part. But this was a game that demanded execution, that demanded intensity. And just having more of that enabled you to win. So, we don't know how long Paolo Banchero is going to be out. He could be back Thursday. I honestly expect him to be back Thursday. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious. It was just, he was a game time decision for this game. They'll get him back. And Utah's, I know they just got hammered by Atlanta, is going to be a different challenge. It's going to be a more difficult challenge. That team is potentially a lot better. But to fill in for Paolo Banchero, it does take your best players filling in that energy. Franz had a great scoring effort. Wendell Carter was screening and, filling up space in such an intense manner. Jalen Suggs was getting into guys defensively. Orlando, it felt like, understood they did not bring the right energy to the game on Sunday and made up for it in this game. A huge focus of theirs at home. And again, that was enough to win. That was enough to win. And the Magic got great efforts from everybody. The ball moved. They got open shots. They made those shots, which always helps. Their star in Franz Wagner got downhill. It was just the Magic weren't firing on all cylinders. We'll get to the box score in a minute, but they were just more intense and took this team out. Plain and simple. They took this team out. Let's go through that box score. Let's talk about what we saw from individuals. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for quick words from our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit's only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's go through the final box score real fast as the Orlando Magic defeat the Brooklyn Nets 108-81. A little bit of a score adjustment after the game, so my graphic was wrong. Earlier in the night, I'm too lazy to change it. Not worth changing it in my mind. I'll give the Nets that extra point. Magic still covered the spread. I believe they're second in the league in record against the spread this year, but that's neither here nor there. The Orlando Magic just so thoroughly dominated this game. Just a complete dismantling. Brooklyn shoots 39.2% from the floor, 8 for 31 from 3, 11 for 14 from the line. They forced 22 turnovers for 29 points. Magic just dominating on that front. Just, again, so disruptive. They had 14 steals in the game. Just really, really got after them. Just really, really made Brooklyn's life miserable. Like, even early in the game, Orlando just kind of understood that, hey, just get into these guys, be physical. If you miss on a steal, Brooklyn was making some shots early. They hung around this game longer than maybe they should have, but just be disruptive. Like, that was the goal for the game. And like, that was so important to this game, was the Magic just really stuck to their principles. And they haven't had a game where they got a ton of deflections, where they get a ton of turnovers like this in a little bit. This is what the Magic's defense can do. And so, yeah, they knew if they played with this intensity, this fire, especially against an opponent like Brooklyn, where they can impose their will, especially understanding the kind of offense they were playing for most of this game, that eventually they would crack. Eventually they would break. Eventually their defense would just be too good. And again, like, they give up 34 points in the middle 2 quarters. Like, if you give up 34 points in a quarter, as long as you're not giving up any 40-point quarters, you're going to dominate. You're going to win pretty handily. This was a defensive masterclass first and foremost, and that's obviously who the Magic are. We talked about Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges has some big game against the Magic. A lot of Magic fans just fear him a ton. They want him on the team just to not have to play him. They shut him down. 4 points, 2 for 14 shooting, 0 for 7 from 3. They eliminated him from the game, essentially. A lot of double teams sent his way. They trapped him on screen and rolls. They didn't let him get into a rhythm. Even though Orlando turned the ball over 19 times, 13 points off of turnovers. A lot of those were late in the game when the game was already decided. It was like 5 midway through the fourth quarter. Brooklyn had only 5 second chance points, and they were 2 for 7, or 5 fast break points and 2 for 7 on those attempts. The Magic did a really good job preventing fast breaks, which killed them in the second game, in the game that Mikal Bridges played really well. There was just a very deep, intense focus on taking Mikal Bridges out of his game, forcing him out of his shots, forcing him to give the ball up, and not letting it get back to him. The Magic executed their defensive game plan perfectly. Like plain and simple. This team is a defensive team first. And so we're not even getting to the individuals on the box score yet. This is a defensive team first. And the Magic played like it. Like, they really shut this team out and shut this team down. It was impressive to watch, I have to say. It was very impressive to watch. And the Magic just took this team out. Like, no other way to say it, no other way to sugarcoat it, no other way to get around it. Orlando beat up this Brooklyn team. And it starts on defense. Now, you got to get some scoring. The Magic have had plenty of good defensive games where they couldn't score the ball. the fact that they were shooting above 50% for most of the game, shooting comfortably from three. They were 9 for 25. They started off the game 3 for 6. Their first 7 shots of the game, I believe, were 3-pointers. So a little bit worried about that, but they got those attempts down. They won the paint 56-42. Again, you get 55 points in the paint, hold the other team under 50. The Magic are going to win those games. Like that's Magic basketball. That's who the Magic are. So they were able to get downhill, get to the basket. Early makes from beyond the arc loosened everything else up. That got Franz Wagner going. He made the first 2-point basket on a really nice spin move through the defenders. 21 points, 8 for 11 shooting, just 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Franz was really good. Like, he would have easily had 30 if the Magic needed him to play in the fourth quarter. He played 28 minutes in the game. Caleb Houston's the only guy that eclipsed 30 minutes, and obviously that's because he started the game, but also still part of the team's bench lineups. We'll get to him in a minute here. But Franz just got wherever he wanted on the court. He even had a couple mid-range jumpers, had a couple bailout, not bailout, but late shot clock mid-range jumpers, which he doesn't do very often. This is why Franz is so good and what the Magic need to see more of from him. Wendell Carter, I thought, had a nice game as well. 10 points, 5 for 9 shooting, 7 rebounds. Really more important than his scoring, his screening was really good. Did a lot of really great seals to open up space in the paint. Just really used his body well. Worked around the basket really well too. This was just a strong showing. Again, Carter sets the tone for this team defensively. He's really good at backtracking and deflecting lobs to the basket. Like, his versatility really shows. And again, he's a paint protector, not a rim protector. He does a really good job just being a presence to prevent lobs, and he's quick enough and is able to bait players to throw lob passes that he can easily deflect and turn into steals and turn into opportunities the other way. Wendell Carter's a really smart defender. Again, maybe we'll find out in the playoffs just how valuable he can be, but he is a really smart defender, and he played really good defense in this game. Jalen Suggs, a solid game, 9 points, 3 for 5 shooting. Dealt with foul trouble in the first half, but again, the Magic didn't need him to score. They got plenty of scoring off the bench, but they didn't need him to score, but he was there. He was available when they needed him to. Just hounding defense. Dennis Schroeder still got 15 points, 6 for 10 shooting, so Schroeder had a good game. But again, just the Magic cut off the head of the snake defensively. Like, they were over-aggressive. I think there's an emphasis on being over-aggressive, to be honest, just to create some chaos and to put Brooklyn on its back foot a little bit, even if they made some shots off of it or off of kind of gambles that didn't work out. But Suggs was solid. Like, again, everyone was just kind of solid in this game. Like I said, this game is less about what Orlando did well and more about what Brooklyn is not doing. The story of this game is Brooklyn is not well, and I'm concerned for their safety. I'm concerned for their health. They're really in a rough spot right now. It doesn't seem like they're about to fix it. Orlando was just solid across the board. And that should not be a 30-point game. That should not be a 30-point win. That should be a 20-point win or a 15-point win. Like, the Magic should have won this game comfortably. Should they have won this game by 30? No. That's because Brooklyn's really bad. And Brooklyn's playing really poorly right now. Gary Harrison, the start, 8 points, 3 for 6 shooting, 2-4 from 3. Just made his shots. Really liked his game. And then Caleb Houston, 9 points, 3 for 4 shooting, 3 for 4 from deep. When he is limiting his attempts, he's kind of the volume shooter on the team. When he limits his attempts and he makes them, he is really effective. He's a floor spacer. He's able to get his shots up quickly. It's just been about selection. He's had too much of a green light at times. Thought he played under a lot of poise, a lot of control in this game. Got his shots to go when it swung to him, but wasn't over crazy on them. Off the bench, a lot of the usual suspects. Mo Wagner, 16 points, 4 for 7 shooting, 8 for 9 from the foul line. Again, he just does such a good job putting pressure on the rim. Cole Anthony, a bit of an inefficient night, 12 points, 4 for 12 shooting, but he made some of those in-between shots, made a couple of those tough runners. Is 2 for 5 from 3. Did some good things there. The guy that really lifted the team off the bench was Markelle Fultz, 12 points, 6 for 12 shooting. He looked really comfortable out there. There were a few plays that just looked like him. It looked like and felt like Markelle Fultz. And we have not always seen that from him this year. And so he had a couple pinch post plays where he was able to get to his fadeaway. He was aggressive getting to the basket a little bit more. And again, not perfect around the basket, not perfect finishing around the basket, but I really love the way that Fultz played. I thought he looked like he did last year. Like his jumper, that little mid-range jumper, especially coming out of the post, looked more comfortable than it's looked pretty much all year. And it's been a constant battle this year. My theory is still the knee injury has been worse than what they've let on, that he's lacked a lot of lift. A lot of his shots come up short. His shot is about timing. Everyone talks about the hitch. And they think that the TOS is back. First off, the TOS never went away. He's always dealing with that. I don't think anything's necessarily wrong with his shot. I think the timing on his shot is off because he's not getting the lift that he was normally getting. He's not getting the jump, the kind of push from his legs that he normally gets. This game, he looked normal. Or at least normal for him. This game felt like he had a lot of that. And again, the results speak for themselves. Like I said, this game is not about the Magic as much. It's about Brooklyn being really bad because Orlando was just solid. Like I wouldn't characterize this Orlando performance as like incredible. Their defense was really good, but Brooklyn was shooting 40, high 40s, low 50s for a good chunk of the first half. The Magic turned the screws on in the third quarter and blew them out of the water. But the Magic, they shot really well, but I don't think they did anything that special. Franz was really good. They deserve to win. I'm not sitting here saying that they got away with one here, but Orlando did not have like a plus 27 performance, if that makes sense. This was a plus 15 performance. And, again, to turn that into a plus 27 performance is a skill. The Magic dominated an inferior opponent. They made an inferior opponent look really bad. That's what you got to do. Like, you got to be ruthless about it. But this was just a really solid game. Like, I don't have a lot to say about it. Like, it was just good. Everyone was good. Franz was great. Everyone was just really good. And it all added up to a big win. So, there you have it. That's what you got to do in these moments. That's what you got to do in these games. Take care of your business, especially on your home floor. The Magic did that, and we'll move on from there. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey. All of them listen to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find me there at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Wright. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.